everybody, my name is Luke Mar and this is Haute Le Mode, and today on Haute Le Mode we are coming to you with a Louis Vuitton Resort 2022 review. It's kind of scary that I'm talking about 2022 already. So Louis Vuitton hosted the Resort 2022 collection, which for the most part had been kept under wraps and was not attended by their usual gaggle of clients. And while that is disappointing for them, but also me, because having attended an LV Resort show after party, I've seen the clients dressed to the nines in Nicolas Ghesquiere for Louis Vuitton wears. And for anybody that ever says, "But who wears this?" There are people, they are real, and they do genuinely pull it off. I didn't think it was a real thing until I saw it in real life and I was like, oh my god, wow, this is a thing. Now, the Axe Majeur is the large red pedestrian bridge where the show was held, which connects Paris to Cergy-Pontoise, a satellite city developed by the government to help decongest the capital of Paris. It plays easily into Ghesquiere's use of strong architectural and sculptural backgrounds for his resort shows. From Brazil's Niterói Contemporary Art Museum to the Miho Museum in Kyoto, Japan, the brand has used these structures as sets for Nicolas' avant-garde work since the Resort 2015 show. Quote, "A very optimistic, joyful collection" is how Ghesquiere described it, and the nods to futurism and space-age styles echoed the sentiment. Now, the collection opened with a supple red leather coat that was boxy and had a real shine to it. Leathers are not a stranger to Vuitton nor Ghesquiere, who has used the textile in virtually every collection for the house. The coat definitely reminds me of a Pierre Cardin coat from the 1960s, and while it's not in vinyl nor has the circular pockets, something about the fact that Ghesquiere worked for Gaultier early on in his career, and Gaultier worked for Cardin early on in his career, is making me connect some dots. Some sort of pink dress peeks out from underneath, but I'd rather see more of that instead of the 1854 monogram sling bag in white and pink slung over the model's shoulders. Now, a black coat in the same shiny leather emerges with perfectly circular collar and armholes. Underneath is a pair of capri leather pants with ribbed knees, maybe a reference to Ghesquiere's obsession with motorcycle styles, and a Petite Malle, the Ghesquiere answer to those who want to carry a Louis Vuitton trunk as an everyday bag in pink piping and white monogram body, continues to assert the importance of accessories at Louis Vuitton. A red cocktail dress has a fitted bodice, while the godets are rounded and start right below the waist. Like many of Ghesquiere's collections, it has an air of sportswear mixed with a formality, like something a debutante who still clung to the comfort of their sweats would wear to a formal party. The hem is actually a drawstring style, and we can see the end of the string dangles from one side, which I personally think would have been better coming down from both sides, but alas, I digress. But I have to tip my hat to Ghesquiere regardless, because he does seem to be trying to navigate the current in-between of lax pandemic wear and pre-pandemic glamour, in reality to create this weird sort of post-pandemic comfort chicness. The dress's straps remind me of a backpack's and again plays into these activewear notions we have grown accustomed to over this past year. A blue cocktail dress arrives and is similar to its predecessor, except it has a zipped turtleneck and bouffant sleeves. While the skirt again is ruched together by the string inside its hem, the sleeves are unobstructed, and something about the shape reminds me of the rounded flower in the Louis Vuitton monogram. Although I could be overthinking just a little bit, that is something that I am prone to do. A white coat dress mixes a dramatic A-line silhouette, tiered sleeves, and prints to create a Ghesquiere at Vuitton signature style. Now you're probably wondering, who on earth would wear any of these clothes? And I might say, well, it's space age style, so obviously nobody. It's space age. That's the point. But Ghesquiere's Vuitton has been experimenting with, quote, off-the-beaten-track fashion since its very first resort collection. The show notes from Ghesquiere's Resort 2015 show described itself as, quote, "a clash of competing illusions, a cacophony of colors, the illogical striving to become familiar." And here, I think that is achieved. This oversized white cotton dress, which will be great for those not feeling confident in their bodies, allows loose dressing without being unfashionable. The print, made up of normal warm activities like volleyball or volleyball, as the French call it, lush green landscapes, and Saturn collage into a portrait of Ghesquiere's idea of the future. While the tiered sleeves, which Ghesquiere has done time and time again, might reference tiered mantle capes of the Victorian period. I also have been pondering if Ghesquiere's time at Balenciaga, which he brought back to life, influenced this obsession with tiers? Looks 8 and 9 encompass the string-pulled hem from previous looks, but this time it's in a lengthy printed tank top. They too have the collaged prints and seem to have bulbous rounding as they fall below the waist. Underneath the tops are scalloped and jagged skirts, which is another Ghesquiere at Vuitton trope, which we saw during fall 2016 with bodycon dresses that stopped short to expose ruffle underskirts. The styles will most likely always be jarring to those with eyeballs, but I find saying, quote, the illogical striving to become familiar over and over and over and over again in my head helps. The next look is a drawstring dress, this time not made of that thick neoprene-like fabric, but rather hundreds or thousands of white paillettes. If you take a close look, you can see that these paillettes get smaller as they near the hem, which is a nice detail, and I wonder if the size of the paillettes that starts at the top of the dress and then enlarges as it reaches the waist is a way for the look to actually accentuate the skirt. A ribbed collarless shirt appears underneath the dress, and I am instantly reminded of spring 2018 knit dresses and tops, while the hooped hem sleeve continues notions of fall 2015. While one could note the hooped sleeves as a reference to Gaultier's famed fall 1995 collection, Pierre Cardin's obsession with the parabola, the U-shaped thing I never really paid attention to when we were supposed to be graphing things in algebra, dates back to the 1960s, and we can see the early influences in hooped hems. But the first, quote, parabolic dress I can find comes from 1985, when a set of 3 hoops are placed at different parts of the hips and shrouded in stretchy material to give the illusion of rings surrounding the model's body, almost like the rings on Saturn or Jupiter. We can also see a rib knit parabolic sweater from the early 1990s by Cardin, which again seems to be like a grandson referencing his grandfather, at least in a fashion family tree kind of way. The look isn't the most exciting, although it definitely has a 1960s space-age flair, but the history deeply ingrained in it is rather sweet. A paillette collage printed dress is paired with a parabolic sweater and oversized black blazer. I don't mind Ghesquiere trying to tap into a trend that exists. The use of an oversized blazer paired with anything is very much so a trend, but the sleeves on the jacket are ill-fitted and make the blazer feel like an afterthought. A printed jacket is textured with raised silver details that has a stucco feeling, mixed with the 1980s graphics that Nicolas constantly uses, which do remind me of the Saved by the Bell intro. The silver style definitely gives off a futuristic vibe, and again we can see the Pierre Cardin referencing in the circular nipple-like pockets. The boots in black and yellow and red, with whom I'm getting familiar with, just seem a little bit too illogical for me though. A black vinyl cocktail dress follows with orange piping on its pockets, while the cinched waist creates a simple silhouette. Vinyl was a signature fabric of Pierre Cardin's brand, so I wonder if this is another nod to the late designer's work? The Ghesquiere signature mix and match comes into play with what looks like a black vinyl skirt and rich jacquard-like shirt. While the top is certainly a lot to look at, it helps transition the collection into a slew of similar looks. The first is a mixture of a jacquard jacket and skirt full of different motifs that reflect off their somewhat metallic threads. The jacket's torso features a vivid blue and pink lesion-like motif, which is a disease that looks pretty deadly but equally chic. But it also has sleeves in a spiral orange and pinkish. The mini skirt, a sweet little nod to the 1960s again, also incorporates that spiral style with a bright orange and blue colorway. The more and more I get used to Ghesquiere's mashups, the more and more I can see that thrill seekers might actually pick up a few styles like this and unabashedly clash. A collarless jacket in an icy blue that stops at the top of the bust flows into a black and red jacquard motif, which is lovely. The accessorizing is concerning though. The boots are giving me Golden Goose but leather vibes, while I will go on the record and say that the new monogram needs to be scratched from the record and the jury will disregard. A black and white striped version of the jacquard is a fun fun nod back to the striped trunks that helped popularize Louis Vuitton though, but the mixture here is not as forgiving as in the previous look. The proportions of the abstract motif on the jacket seem odd without any correlation from the pants, and the black asymmetrical sections above the bust line are harsher than the previous style. A collarless parabolic rib knit shirt is paired with a ruffle bra with abrasive white straps. There are very few times wearing a bra over a shirt looks chic, and this is not one of them. This most definitely will never be one of them. Another miniskirt look arrives carrying that fun mod aesthetic with a white turtleneck to match, and over top is a textured jacket with vinyl leather and graphic jacquard details. Again, Ghesquiere's cacophony is demonstrated, but once you realize that his intention is to overload the senses, it becomes a lot easier to look at. A double-breasted dress is sleeveless in an asymmetrical glitter motif that feels like sand drifting on a windy beach. Its collarlessness and white strip, denoting a reference to the drop waist, fuels the 1960s references even further. The other double-breasted dress has mantle-like sleeves in a crisp white with only gold and silver trim accentuating it. I find the sleeves incredibly interesting though, as it reminds me of those who buy oodles of expensive bracelets and layer them onto each other like heavy gauntlets. And I mean, I think that's a smart way for a designer to be referencing his clientele. A bright yellow sweater with fluffy feather sleeves are jolting, but their thickness relieves my nervousness about the fact that they at least don't look like a molting bird. The shoulder button details reinforces the military inspiration we have seen throughout the collection thus far, but overall, the look feels a little bit Sesame Street. What seems to be a military-inspired jacket is actually lovely, as Ghesquiere has a history of making sartorial takes on garments usually reserved for active duty members. Its earth tone colors of green, brown, and beige allow the red, black, and white feather mini skirt to seriously contend together. For customers, the joy of seeing a skirt like this shows Ghesquiere's happy and gleeful tone, but still gives a wearable aspect as well. I do wish there was a bit more of an exciting bag attached. Vuitton is about accessories, bags being the main player, and seeing a feathered style or one in this earthy palette could have been a nice touch. It also might have allowed LV customers to share in Ghesquiere's optimism even more. Ghesquiere's take on military shirting features strong shoulders and epaulettes in a damier motif, while the sleeves are in a blue and white seersucker. The torso of the shirt in black and white with gold asymmetrical trim and black cuffs is strong and fun and should be what military uniforms actually look like. Paired with an olive green cargo pant with little braided rope details makes my heart swoon. The second look utilizes the damier motif in green with more ceremonial details on the torso and the cuff, while a pair of navy blue braided pants are also paired with it. These looks denote the effortlessness and forward-thinking chic that Ghesquiere brought to the early 2000s. And the pieces are so regal and rigid in such a crisp way. Now, these styles are progressive and ambitious, but they still feel accessible and wearable, if you can afford them, of course. Another parabolic striped rib knit sweater arrives. Now, while it might be covered up by a very chic and shiny skirt set, I think it's interesting to note the somewhat commercial nature of those sweaters. While again, it's easier to look at the styling of a Louis Vuitton show and be overwhelmed by the amount of things piled onto one look, I think that these collarless sweaters might actually sell quite well. The thing about Nicola's work is, yes, it's a lot, but at the same time, there are little moments in there that honestly I can see selling quite consistently. They are a little bit out there, but not unwearable either, making them perfect for avid followers of Ghesquiere and more cautious clients too. As for the crystal grid skirt and vest, it's gorgeous. It feels incredibly elegant with its large stones reflecting the light, and at the same time is somewhat demure, or as demure as big shiny stones can be. A nicely done double-breasted navy suit with gold buttons is perfectly commercial, while also highlighting the waist and adding a white side stripe for a bit of a juxtaposition. This is probably the tamest look of the entire collection, but I find that even in reserved styles, Ghesquiere can make just good, solid clothing stay interesting. A striped, rounded collar shirt is paired with a white jacket with black lapels and a blue leather pant, and I ponder if this might be a reference to his beloved fall 2007 collection for Balenciaga. While the original blazers had a much more school uniform feeling, here Ghesquiere taps into the sharp tailoring of the 1980s and this very French sensibility of effortless chic, but with some effort. And if you zoom in and see the way the grains in those blue pants crease, it might make you drool a little bit like I did when I first saw them. The duo of flowing tops are mixed with asymmetrical stripped leather skirts, showcasing a dichotomy of lines. While the skirt's semi-detached strips curve with the shape of the hip, the top's vertical and horizontal stripes mix with vertical pleating, which reminds me of geometry. Now, the grid formation plus the curves of the high-low top and skirt gives me nightmares of, well, just math in general, but the skirts feel like they would read error on a graphing calculator more than they would draw a well thought out arc. The navy blue version with its embroidery and navy coloring works lovely, but again, the skirt feels off. Now, the juxtaposed sharp shoulder shirt and its languid flow works really well here with a pair of pants instead of the skirt. Again, the cargos remind us of Ghesquiere's Balenciaga, namely spring 2002, and while there is no patchwork involved, the pants are the perfect backdrop to let the shirt shine. Hot. It looks good. It's fun. A simple black dress is paired with a paillette-filled camisole top, which might be a reference to another famed space-age provocateur, Paco Rabanne. Rabanne created chainmail looks that utilize metal as a textile in a serious and mod manner, and is closely associated with the 1960s, which Nicolas is just piling on here. I think Nicolas could have gone one step further with a look of this manner though. I want a little bit more excitement, a little bit more chainmail. Oh my god, what if like a full Louis Vuitton monogram chainmail moment? Like that is what we want, what we need. A mix and match jacquard jacket appears with different spiral styles on the torso and each sleeve. I do wonder if these different motifs are supposed to be a reference to Ghesquiere's spring 2002 patchwork collection though. I do think the stiffness of the jacket is accentuated by the stiff but baggy rolled shorts, and honestly it just makes it look much more cohesive as it can be. A leather jacket with rounded sleeves is a lot, although I do like the ceremonial braiding on the placket with the little Louis Vuitton monogram flowers. We can see a paillette top over a dress again underneath, but alas, there is too much to handle here. The collection finished off with a simpler take on the ceremonial military coats from earlier. The white jacket with black and gold detailing and epaulettes is sweet, while the fabric looks like breathable cotton. And you know, it's kind of important in a resort collection to have breathable things. Paired with a baggy short with braided details from earlier and a black and white monogram Petite Malle with red axe mesure colored strap, it closes out a pretty tame Ghesquiere for Vuitton collection. Now, Nicolas' work at Louis Vuitton might not always suit everybody's taste, but his referencing of himself and the greats who came before him are always reassuring. Like the show notes from his first resort collection mentions, his work, which I have often found as illogical, is definitely becoming more and more familiar. I also think a new game where I guess what clients will and won't gravitate towards will keep me entertained. To close this out, Nicolas' collections might be a bit too ahead of their time for some, but his influences from decades ago can still be felt today, meaning he is always one to have a deeper think about. So that is the end of our Louis Vuitton Resort 2022 review. I'd love to know what you guys think in the comments down below. I will see you guys in the next one, and TTYL.